All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Adem Bria. I'm the Chair of the Housing Committee. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It is December 23rd at 6:35 PM. I guess do I have to do ground rules first? I know. I haven't memorized them yet.
Yeah.
I never will, but. Okay, ground rules. One, no one may speak until granted the floor. Two, CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Okay, Angel, if you could do the roll.
Remember, when I call your name, please after present, Stephanie Arroyo. Adem Bria.
Present.
David Giordano.
Present.
John Green. Christina Johnson. Christina Johnson.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Couldn't get in, sorry. Can you hear me?
Roberto Lopez here. Jessica Morris.
Here.
Beverly Pavon.
Present.
Claudia Perez. Cynthia Ramos. Dawn Sanders. Roberta So.
I'm sorry, Angel,
Yeah.
did you hear me?
Danny Vasquez.
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yeah. Christina, can you hear us? Because I did hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, we will move to adopting the agenda for this month. If I don't see any objections, then we will adopt the agenda. Okay, seeing no objections, then this month's agenda has been adopted. We didn't have a meeting last month, so there are no minutes to approve. With that said, we will now move to announcements and informational updates, which we have a few. All right, so first one is the Department of Housing and Preservation, HPD, Aging in Place Initiative works with buildings already receiving financing through an HPD preservation loan program to assess and finance in-unit and building-wide modifications to assist seniors and people with disabilities in those buildings maintain independent, safe, and comfortable lives. Aging in Place is part of the Seniors First initiative. Residents in HPD finance buildings now receive a survey in English or Spanish to select apartment modifications, which will be completed in conjunction with building rehabilitation through a preservation loan program. B, on November 20th, NYC Comptroller Brad Lander released an audit of the City of New York, NYCHA, exposing 36.6 million in potential misuse of funds for small repair contracts. The report revealed that vendors often failed to provide proof that work was completed, leaving residents dissatisfied with the state of their apartments. C, the housing lottery for Ray Harlem, the housing component of the National Black Theater Development Project at 2031 Fifth Avenue on 125th Street, is underway and open through February 3rd, 2025. The project will include 222 total apartments, 58 of which will be affordable to households earning 40 to 130% of AMI. There is a 20% community preference for residents of Manhattan Community District 11. D, on December 5th, the New York City Council passed legislation to reduce property taxes for renovations. The legislation gives landlords an incentive to fix apartments and helps them afford building upgrades in line with the city's landmark climate emissions mandate, Local Law 97. This bill will extend the J51 tax abatement program for certain alterations or improvements completed after June 29th, 2022, and before June 30th, 2026. Eligible buildings, including certain condos, co-ops, and rental buildings. The owners of these buildings would be able to recover up to 70% of the cost of the work. Okay, so,
We actually did have, minutes for the October meeting.
oh, and we didn't approve those.
We did.
Because we didn't have the meeting. All right, so I'll circle back and then Jessica, I saw your hand. All right, so my error, because we didn't have the November meeting, we never approved the October minutes, so. We will adopt and approve the October minutes if there are no objections. Okay, seeing no objections, then the October minutes,
Those are in our board drive, yes?
yeah. All right, so with that said, then we will approve and adopt the October meeting minutes for this committee, all right? Presentations and discussions, so since we didn't meet last time, last month, oh, Jessica?
Sorry, just with regard to announcements, do you know if HDFC buildings managed in some part by HPD would be eligible for that financing?
I don't, do you, Angel, or we could look into that, I don't know. I can look in, I can get back to you, give me a day or so. Thank you. Yeah, I will try to find out something and get it to you in the next day or two, if there's, yeah, yeah, sure, thank you. All right, so last meeting, we set up those, I called them subcommittees, I got in trouble for that because I can't make committees. So we're gonna call them working groups or subgroups. So the first one was the property overview, right? So if you remember, like the meeting before, I had compiled data on Ascendant. And I just specifically picked them because at that time the board was approving a big project that they were doing with HPD. It wasn't, some people were wondering why it was picked, and that was the reason it was picked. Since then, the goal of that subcommittee was to first just identify some, of the larger landlords and management companies, and just kind of see not all their properties, that some of them, it's hard to find all their properties. They don't have a sentence transparent in that you can go to their website and their entire portfolio is there. And I'm not saying these other organizations aren't to be being transparent, but like when you go to some of their websites, you don't get a single address. So I just figured, I don't know if I'm gonna get them all, but we compiled a list and they were assigned to members of that subgroup. So we did Tall Prop, Hope Community, GRC Management, which I haven't really heard them ever mention at the board, but I went on a little bit of like a rabbit hole of like the worst landlord lists in New York, and they popped up. And there's already been some activism and protests against the landlord involved, but I just figured it would be worth the board looking into. So that was another one. I'll get into some of the data, even though everybody has it, it's in the Google Drive, and we'll be adding to that. And then the last one was La Casa Nuestra HDFC. So the goal here obviously isn't just to compile the data, but it was to get a starting point to see if these first group of the ones we identify are worth calling in, right? To start a dialogue, right? To find out what challenges they're facing. We couldn't get Ascendant here. I still want to get them here because they have another project in the pipeline. I'm also monitoring, because HPD promised us at full board that all the violations that they have on their existing properties have to be cleared. I think once it goes through ULURP and everything, which I'm gonna take their word for it, that will happen, but we have to follow up and make sure. And then we have to continue to monitor that situation and make sure that once they get what they wanted, are they gonna keep it the way they do? And we did get an email back from them. It was a very thoughtful, long email. I mean, I would have still liked them to come. I think they are gonna come next month. They're going to the committees, but this is for a new project, so we can't ask questions we'll have for them. It doesn't have to all be related to that. And they made an interesting point, right? Which is, a lot of those violations and this and that, they're saying, that, they're not all our fault. But I thought they went a little bit too far the other side, which started to make it sound like none of it was their fault. The truth, I feel like, usually lies somewhere in the middle. So feel like we're gonna take that approach with every one of these till we figure it out, but let's just kind of like, I'll just kind of go through it. So top prop of the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you guys feel free to like chime in. I'm just trying to get, us with this stuff. They have 1,185 apartments in the 6 properties that I identified. I won't read them out. You have it, but of those, in the 2 years, they had 1,759 complaints. So, I mean, that's more than 1 complaint per unit. It's almost 1.5 complaints per unit. There's only 80 complaints open currently, but there are 547 violations current. 212 of those are C class violations, which are the most severe of the 3 groups. They have 127 litigation cases. I don't have that, which ones are still pending or closed, but that's still a lot of, I mean, just on this, that's a 10%, a little bit more than 10% of the units are having litigation problems, if you just go by that number.
Would those also be like rent? People
Yeah,
have rent,
yes,
so that-
yes, yeah.
Opposed to-
The only thing I believe on HPD, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone else, is it'll identify if it's like a harassment lawsuit as opposed to,
It'll differentiate it.
right, but it won't, yeah, it won't really get much more specific than that.
Yeah, if you wanna look that information up, you have to go to housing court and you can search by litigant. If you put in like the official name top up, it'll show you every case, including the ones that are open, pending, and give you access
It might
to.
not be a bad thing to look at.
Yeah, see, yeah, it's all public record, so it might be good to see how many of them are tenant non-payment cases versus. Other types.
Yeah, it could just be something like hot water and heat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you'll also be able to, if you do kind of, do that analysis overlay, you'll potentially be able to connect the complaints that are related to kind of tenant attempts to, sort of stay
Yeah.
put or,
Yeah.
delay as needed, and those, I would not discount them entirely, right, because they're a real complaint, but it also is often not the property owner's fault that they can't deal with it.
right, or like they're not being granted access, which is something that a Senate said was like, a lot of times when they'll try to make repairs, they aren't given access, and, they did say, and I'm just, whether this is the case or not, or the case, that sometimes, they'll get a lawyer and they're not paying rent, and then they're just advised like, okay, don't give access to have this fixed. I mean, which, sorry, because my computer is connected to my phone. So thank you. I mean, I'm gonna try my best to also start like diving a little bit more into the data, but I figured it was a good place to start to get a more, macro assessment of just, what the issues are. One other thing I wanted to point out about Top Prop, and I'm not gonna name any names, but somebody on the board came to me at our full board meeting and they mentioned, I believe it was MS Houses, which if you look at our data, they're actually probably one of their better run properties, but I heard that there were some things going on with, and don't quote me directly, but like with evictions being handled very weirdly. So I'm haven't had a chance to speak more in depth with that person who seems to have more knowledge of that situation. Is somebody like?
Hello?
You here for the board meeting?
On the Hopkins. Steve's still in town. So,
Oh, she's on,
she's not on the board anymore. She used to.
oh, Wanda Hopkins. Oh, yeah, 'cause she was on my liquor committee.
Yeah, she used to be on, but she's still in town.
I'll reach out to her. Yeah, that's good. It's good to know. See, like, that's the other thing. Well, we'll get to that, about trying to get contacts in each of these,
I can get your contacts for 1775. Anne-Marie still knows everybody over at AK.
yeah. Okay, good. So we'll leave Top Prop alone now, but so what I'm gonna do with Angel, but is try to reach out to each of these and see if we can start we'll see who's willing to come first, and we'll kind of try to get, the goal is to get at least one on a month, not more, not less, one.
Nitrous. I think Becca and Lex Gardens are. both
Are they?
classified as nitrous. There might be.
Lex Gardens, no, Lex Gardens is, It's like project-based section A. It's all prop.
Yeah,
So as it's A&Ms.
Okay.
all right, so the next one was, Hope Community, yeah,
In
well,
regards to complaints, open complaints and violations. Which one are we gonna attack? I mean, or go, you know,
so usually complaints that a violation starts off as a complaint, right? Because you have to make a complaint to get an inspector, or, out there to then issue a violation of the complaint. So the idea is, the complaints are bad, and then if you remember what Ascended, there were a lot of open complaints too. I
right,
think the target should be, I guess it can be on a case by case, basis, like, there could be a property that has a ton of complaints that haven't funneled into violation status yet, and that might be worth pursuing, the complaints, right? And that could also be to address root problems before they become violations. But I think that I want to focus more on the violations when they're, really high, and again, like, cause some, like you'll see, like, so Tal Prop only has 80 open complaints when there were 1,760, but yet they have 547 violations. So
right.
I think an open complaint stays open till it's been addressed into a violation. So what that means is a lot of these 1,759 complaints, it's misleading to just look at open complaints and think they fixed all of them.
Right.
No, 547 are now open violations, and there might have been more violations of that have now been corrected. So there's that, all right, I mean, it's hard to say specifically, but I guess that's the best way to look at it. So then the next one was Hope. Again, this is probably not all their properties, but I identified 6. Of those 6, there's 164 units. And you'll see here again, right, 363 complaints, 9 open, but then 368 violations, right? And that's a lot, because that's more than 2 per unit of these buildings that have been identified. So that's another one, that I identified, we compiled the data, and they're worth bringing in, right? Then GRC management, I was mentioning the will before the meeting started. I've never heard, all these other ones I've heard us talk about them on the board. But one of my goals was, and I think our goals when we talked about it, was to identify smaller landlords and maybe people who've flown under the radar, right? Not to just keep bringing in the same group. So just doing some research online, I believe they were on like the worst landlord list, et cetera, and then I knew there's some articles on one of their properties, there was a lot of protesting, it's one of the I forgot which one specifically, I mean, it's probably one of these that had like some of the most violations in the city for like, and these aren't big buildings, if you look at their buildings, they're 20 to 30 units, so we're talking about, something in between a bigger building and like a brownstone, right, that like, those 6 to 8 story buildings, they have 453 violations over, 171 units, and it's not somebody that I recall the board, nobody I even mentioned it to has really been aware of them, yep.
And a quarter of them are C violations, which is.
Which is, exactly, I
And
mean,
the bulk of it is B and Cs, which are the 2
the
worst.
2 worst, yeah, there's only 69 As, and there's almost,
They also have a usually large number of application for the number of units they have.
yeah, it's like 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Is there a layer of understanding that kind of classifies the housing type or subsidy type that these violations are in?
So you're asking,
And I ask because.
no, I'm just trying to figure out, you're asking if we could figure out, like, for example, if they're project-based Section 8, or if they're HCFC, or if they're,
Mhm.
I mean, we can look.
we could add that.
I only ask because, sometimes those things become restrictive as far as funding streams, or the opposite, that there may be mechanisms to encourage owners to use if they are leveraging, X subsidy, and, I mean, to sort of understand
It's a good point.
if there's a pattern that we can point to and say, you can and should be doing this because it's available to you because of that.
Right, connecting them with resources.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, we can look into that, we can, and that's the thing, right, this is a working document, we can add a column possibly with that and identify, and. Speaking to these, I believe GRC Management is just a private, management company, they own properties, I don't know. You know, if some of them are Section 8 or what they are, obviously, La Casa Nuestra is an HDFC. I know Hope Community is like a non-for-profit. Palprop, I know they have Section 8 or whatever, but I also know to
They're
make
private.
money, they're
Yeah,
private, I mean,
they're
yeah,
private,
we all know that, right, so, but we can add that definitely in. All right, so that was the other one, and then the last one was La Casa Nuestra HDFC. So 1, 2, again, 6, I kind of picked 6 to keep it fair. They have 82 units amongst these 6 properties. And they have 419 violations. In this case, at least it skews less to the C, it's 76, which is still a lot. And then the most they have are the class B, so the, you know, second most severe, less severe, however you wanna look at it. So I think the subgroup did a great job within the parameters that I set. What I will say, and maybe I wasn't clear about this, and thank you, Jessica, is not only do I welcome you guys to populate it with the data that I, you know, whatever you wanna call it, the accesses that I've created, you're welcome to expand it. I guess I just ask that you share it with me first, just so like I can kind of like let everybody know, like, hey, we're gonna add this so that, you know, we can have some kind of just control of, you know, what we're expanding. I don't want to make tonight's meeting too long, but I think what we've done here is we've identified for Ascendant is gonna come, so I feel like they sent us that email, but there are questions we want to have, you know, asked. I've thought about the building tours, right? And I'm not saying they're not valuable, but one of my concerns about them is how effective they can be in some cases, right? So you can get into a property, maybe, right? And you can see the common areas and the hallways and this and that, and that might give you some idea. But I mean, unless you're gonna get into units and, you know, I don't know, like people gonna just like open the door, hey, you know, there's 6 community board members, I don't know, right? I remember knocking on doors for some buildings to get people petitions and stuff, and I mean, listen, if somebody knocks on my door, I ain't answering, so I'm not gonna blame people, so we're gonna have to.
There's, I guess it depends on who you're walking with. I
Yeah.
remember, 2 or 3 years ago, we did a tour of 1775 houses, did it with Jim Ratty. That's the tall prop, Xavier was
Yeah,
there.
Xavier's mentioned that to me.
Yeah, and we went to like 6 different units. And
There was mold issues and
there
stuff,
was- yeah,
right?
so like, and that was like I think. There were maybe like 8 of us that did the tour, some community board members, some members that were working with elected officials at the time. That was productive because we had someone like Jim.
To get you
Yeah,
access.
so it's like you have to have the right person walking with you and kind of setting up the tour ahead of time, so it takes a little bit more legwork, but it can be productive.
If it's done
If it's
correctly.
done correctly.
Okay.
Your mileage may vary.
No, but we can look into it, that's a good idea.
So
Beverly?
will we have a list of, or can we contact if they have tenant association?
Exactly.
Cause that will give us a foot in.
Yeah.
Even having them come in before we have the management company come in and hear their complaints. And maybe have documentations on what's going on. And then we have some more informational questions that we can ask the management team or the owners when we have a meeting with them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's useful and I didn't think about it that way. My only thing is, I don't want this to be just a place to air grievances, which is what these things can turn into sometimes. Like, you know, you can have a meeting for 2 hours and just hear people complain and rightfully so. What I think the case is here is we've identified big problems, right? I mean, lots of violations. Now, we don't know the whole story, but rather than come in, have, you know, and I would be hesitant, and I know you didn't say this, to have them come together. And when I used to do licenses and permits, I found it effective to put everybody in the room if they were against each other or not, but that's a little bit less personal than people's living situations. But I just feel like I wanna hear both sides of the story, I agree with you, but my case might be to bring in the management companies or whatever first, just because. Like, let's see if they take accountability, right? If they come in and they just are like, oh, this is everybody's just, hired a lawyer and they don't wanna let me in their apartment, then, now I wanna hear the stories, and I still wanna hear them. But I just feel like we got complaints, we're gonna get more complaints, and then it's hard to cut people off. Been to some meetings lately where, you bring someone in and they hijack a meeting and you told them to come in, and then you don't have it in you to say, all right, I gotta cut you off. So I just wanna, okay,
Understanding that the sort of potential can of worms, right, that engaging, tenant governance could be at an early stage. It seems like it's a must do, though, in some way, not to say, tell us everything about, this grievance situation, but just to establish a point of contact, right, if there is one. And to say, we're doing some work, generally, in the same way that, the letter sort of outline the initiatives. Having done that due diligence point of communication, it establishes a sort of a neutrality in.
that's fair, and I think maybe. See, that's why I like, maybe instead of inviting them first, we could just open the dialogue, right? Or, have a, I'd even be willing to, I don't wanna commit anyone to anybody else. I'd even be willing to get on a phone call with them. I just meant, I guess for the sake of our time here working, but I think that's a good idea. So,
Would it be easier if, because for all these violations, their apartment numbers are listed? And maybe we could speak to the tenants who's having these violations and see, and then we'd be more specific. So when we talk with the management for owners, we like, this apartment had this violation for so many, why you're not working on it? So we're more specific to, instead of the whole building, we're more specific to the violations that's already online that we can speak with.
that's a good idea. I just think that that could be a lot of work, right? It could take a lot of time, like as
And
a.
all of them.
No, I hear what you're saying. We could look at it two ways, right? There could be like a dual approach, which is micro and macro, right? Which is like, okay, engage a tenant association, but, and I know. And I mean this as a compliment. I know you like to work hard and do research or whatever, and I'll do it too. I'm doing the most I can with the pack schedule, but. If like you identify a unit in one of these that's, say, got 10 violations, that could be something worth pursuing. So definitely, David, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, kind of, like when you said. Bringing people here over hostage, maybe we just go listen places,
Yeah, yeah.
like. Find a way to get invited to some of these larger. Places and attend their tenants meeting or identify. People and say, we wanna just listen and hear it, how we can support. And then just sit in, not with any agenda to address anything, but just listen. And then, let people know we're here.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's a good, and it's good.
Those are the most violations as well.
Yeah, no, because like we talked about doing that with NYCHA, right? So I've Loretta, who's on our committee, is gonna get,
It
and.
might be easier to get into the night than some of these.
Yeah, right, and that question is, we gotta first see, do they have tenant associate, do they have meetings? But I was only looking at that from a NYCHA angle. Some of these bigger properties or whatever could have, I know I lived in a building like growing up, like a private, but they had a tenant, so because a lot of apartments and they need to organize, so. Great idea. Yeah, so the NYCHA, I guess we'll segue a little bit just to the NYCHA working group. I also started a table there that hasn't gotten filled out as much as I would have loved it to be filled out. I'm having a hard time filling it out just because the information's a little bit hard to find, and I haven't, full transparency, had that much time to tackle that yet. What I've had some headway with is identifying, like Loretta's gonna get us into meetings in January and pretty much every month with, I think it's Jackie Robinson houses. Angel and John, we have like our meeting, where we kind of talk about the, agenda, what we're planning to do, and then there are the PSA 5 meetings where a lot of these complaints and stuff get brought up. Now, sometimes that falls on a full board meetings, but we talked about it, and that's board work. So, it could be me and John going, or one of us going. I'd like to go with John at the beginning because he has, I think, more you know, I don't wanna just show up and like, I've never been there and like, who the hell is this guy? But, you know, so we go in there, you know, so we might miss a few full board meetings. Also, any of you are welcome to volunteer and I will make sure that you're marked as not absent towards your, because, you know, I know we've been having this attendance thing now, so I'm not costing anyone their attendance. I feel bad that I got sick and had this I feel like I owe the people that missed tonight, like it's on me. But, so the night, and then Xavier, it's holiday season, then we had Thanksgiving, so it's been crazy, but he has promised me that in January, he hasn't told me which one. He named some names, again, don't hold me, because we have these like long phone conversations, but he promised me he was gonna send me dates and this and that, and that we could get, we're gonna do some walkthroughs, whatever. Now, I know I just said my feelings on walkthroughs, but I think, and he knows that, because he
It's a
did,
little bit different on.
yeah, on night show, right?
Like, yeah.
But I just wanna go into, because I think you can tell in certain instances, just like, look, if the common areas are massively neglected, or the hallways are like
Or there's a
horrendous,
leak, like the
Right.
Wilson, like just a leak in the lobby.
then you can only imagine what, you know, the unit, you know, obviously some people will fix that themselves and take care, but like, that's also not necessarily, you know, when you're renting or whatever, you're not really like supposed to be like, you know,
Yeah.
doing your own repairs, right? So that's, go ahead.
I wasn't aware until I just tried to wrap my brain around it, but there are 24 NICA developments in East Fargo. Um,
26 if you count Yorkville.
thank you. Can we count Yorkville?
Well, they're not part of the board.
Sammy Isaacs.
Yeah, Isaacs and Holmes, yeah, they fall in CBU, but yeah, that's two additional ones, that's
They're
why.
not us, but
Yeah.
they're left out of aid
Yeah.
in many ways, I imagine. Sorry, I just needed to voice that because I wasn't aware when we're talking about it, we mentioned one or two, I think there's 20 others that we're not.
I think that the number of units, like 22,000 units. give or
Yeah,
take.
it's something, I thought I saw 24, but
Yeah.
yeah, well, I only mentioned those two because they're ones that we're getting some access to and some headway, and I think what I said all along, and I could be wrong, I don't know how these things will play out 100%, but I think if like we can get into or let's call it low hanging fruit, just because that's the ones we have, maybe a open channel dialogue, if we can make any impact at all. I think the ones that maybe we're worried, like they don't know us or they don't have a relationship or they're skeptical, if like you could show a success story here or there, it'll get them like, oh, you know, they did do this, or they heard us, or they helped us, or they connected us with this, like it can open up that,
With Nitro too, there's also it's one management.
Right.
Yeah, you're only going to one, you know.
we gotta get into the tenant associations, you know, and that's it, because, yeah, I mean, again, when I took this committee, I just went to guest working, like, you know more than I do, I'm not afraid this, no, but you do, about this, I'm like, I didn't think I needed to say it, but, yes, so. All of those things, there was Candy shared an article with me, and I haven't had it, not an article, Brad Lander released his audit. And one of the things that was relevant here was, I think last time we talked about the PAC program and how, you know, and that's one of the columns we have identifying which properties.
The
Eviction.
Evictions.
Right.
Act right.
So the eviction rate in PAC RAD is now about the same as in non-NYCHA. Christina, your hand's up. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at looking at the hands. You want to speak? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot it was even up, but it was, you passed by a long time ago. You guys were talking about, bringing people in for, to discuss their issues at night and then having management come in. So you guys kind of said everything that I wanted to say, so I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll do a better job of my head on a swivel. Sorry, so, yeah, so it looks very, I guess, small when you look at the percentage, but it was like 0.11, I think, in NYCHA, that weren't in the PAC program, and it was like 0.69 in the NYCHA, apartments that were in the PAC program, which apparently is very similar to eviction rates in non-NYCHA properties, right? So in privately owned, properties,
And that was always, I wasn't here when that all happened, but that was one of the complaints, or one of the fears of going to PAC RAD was what was gonna happen with the
Yeah.
For its depiction. And we were reassured, well, not we, but tenants were reassured by those who were proposing it, that it wouldn't be an issue.
And it is. And and besides that, I mean, and this is part of the issue, and they're saying that it's worse, and I haven't dived that deep yet, or if it's identified that some. Okay, I mean, you could say it out loud if you want, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, PIX, was just talking about this, on an event, where they said the pack is one out of 176 units, where NYCHA was one out in 866 units.
Okay.
So they, their rate of evictions under pack is more,
Yeah,
way more than how NYCHA was handling
and based on what I saw
Yeah.
from the comptrollers. Yeah,
Yeah,
and they're not stating like that it might not get worse, like there isn't, one of the concerns was, and it's, I guess the way it was identified was it's a little bit like, property by property, like, and there have been very bad like outreach on like letting the tenants of these PAC programs know exactly what the process is gonna be, and they're getting caught off guard, and you know, some of these evictions could have been like avoided with
right,
proper awareness.
Where would you go?
right, exactly. They just add on to the homelessness
Yeah, well, this is what we,
and then what about, right,
yeah. No, you're almost taking
Yeah.
somebody who that's like their like lifeline, and they're like, they can't. That's it, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna presume to know what everyone's
Right.
situation is, but, and this is what we talked about. Even like when we passed the resolution for the seniors, right? It's like, we're literally trying to create more affordable housing for seniors. That we got, but we gotta remember to protect what we already have, right? And we're actually. We can always circle back. I'm just trying to push us along. It's a, like literally Christmas Eve-ish, the eve before Christmas. So I appreciate everyone being here to that. And I might, yeah, so that is next, old business. Okay, so. Okay, Christina? Sorry. I forgot my own thing. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
And you can
Okay,
do that.
so-
Ping, that'll be our safe word.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in there while you guys were talking about the RAD Pact, right? So I went to a meeting by Council Member Chris Banks, who is the chair of the Housing Committee. And they had, NYCHA was there discussing the RAD Pact, because they're supposed to be overseeing all of the management properties that are under PACT, and they are not doing that. And my understanding is that there is so much going on with Red Pack that Chris Banks had to have this formal meeting and stated that Red Pack is not working for anybody. The management companies are not giving information to the residents. The residents are filing complaints. They're not getting their complaints answered, and there's no like receipt. So right now with NYCHA, if I say I don't have any hot water and I fill out a complaint form, I get a complaint number. They don't get that in those packed developments. Also, they don't have any reports on seasonal preparedness. There's plenty of heating complaints in those developments. Linden Houses in particular, which was a development that's in his district, they said that they had been out of heat for weeks, and nobody at NYCHA knew that they were without heat for that long. And they're supposed to be on top of all of this that is going on. Now, to wrap that up with, we have been approached as I have as the TA for Lexington Houses to join the PACT program. After everything that I've heard over the years about PACT program, I really don't want to go into PACT, but my board members kind of like this idea. So we do have a tour of a development in the Bronx that is in the PACT program. So once we do that tour, I can report back to you exactly what I see and hear from the residents there.
2 questions, and you tell me if we can't, that's fine. could some of us go on that tour? Or just me?
Not the
Cool.
first tour is supposed to only be for the executive board of the Tenant Association at Lexington. But I can inquire as to whether or not you can go with us as a community
Okay.
board.
I
And I'll,
appreciate it.
yes, thank you.
Then second,
Hello,
you have, for your tenant meetings, I'm assuming, are they monthly?
Yes, every month on the first Wednesday of the month.
And are we welcome to attend that, whoever would want to attend? I would attend if I can, but I'm asking, are we allowed to?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna email you for dates and times. So definitely.
Okay, great, yes.
Thank you so
You're
much, that was very helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello? Hello,
Yep. Loretta,
this is, yeah. Um, I was just listening, to what was being said. And, as I mentioned before, Jackie Robinson, we supposed to go, they're supposed to be, transitioning into PAC March of 2025.
so in a few
And,
months.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is what was told to us. And we have met with them on several times and have gone to visit other tax developments where we met with some residents. They were pleased with it. And the one that I think, what's her name, Christine is talking about in the Bronx. We had
Yeah.
gone to, yeah, that was one development that was really renovated, or people were very pleased with the work that PAC had done. And as I said, we have been having several meetings with them, and it's just interesting for me to hear different things that are coming up, as well as this what's his name, Lander had done the comparison between NYCHA and PAC, and to hear that the eviction for PAC is higher than NYCHA. And it's kind of interesting too, because in one of our tennis meetings, our manager under NYCHA had asked us to go, if we would go and talk to residents about their paying their rent. And we looked at her like, that's not our responsibility, that's yours. But in January, as I sent to you information, we have our first tenant meeting of the year, and we have our first executive board meeting for the year, starting in January. So anyone that is interested is more than welcome to attend those meetings. And I think we have a meeting with PAC, maybe before March. They will be there. More than likely, they will be there in January to our meetings. So if you're interested, you're more than welcome to come.
Yeah, I know me and you emailed, and I will definitely be there. And what I'll start doing is getting like the dates and times, and listen, I know we all have schedules, so I'm happy to be the one that goes and circle, but everybody will, I guess, I'm not gonna invite people to this, but it sounds like that was an open invitation.
Just give us that.
I will circulate. We have that one thread where we are all in it, and so I'll just keep that open, so you're not getting all these new threads.
I was just showing, the New York Housing Conference did a tracker that they update every year, and it kind of gives you some top lines. It's district data, so it also includes, the part of the Bronx, but in terms of NYCHA's capital needs, it's over $10 billion. The city as a whole needs 70 billion. So we're like more than,
10%, like
yeah.
12.5%.
It's the highest percentage of any other.
Oh, we have so many natural facilities.
That's
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
no, that's why.
What
yeah.
was it, like 20, what was it, 20-something thousand here, and then what?
So it's 22,741, and then the average across
Is
every
three.
other district's 3,000. So we literally have
Like more than
almost 10 times more
combined, maybe we have more,
And then we have other subsidy housing.
Yeah,
on
so
top of
Section 8
that.
units, we have 70.
That's actually about 37%. It's all.
Actually, does this tell us it comes close, but it does tell us that we have 7,500 Section 8 units. The average is 3,000.
Oh, double.
So double.
And then the other number that's not there, shelters. You know,
Yeah.
again, that's.
Yeah. No, so
that's
it's,
an impact on housing, on community.
of course it is. Okay, with that said, we're gonna go to, the old business. So if you remember, we passed that resolution. Angel, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask you, the emails that you sent back and forth with, I think it was Department of Finance. Yeah, if you, I don't know, cause you could just like, I guess, give us a little bit of what they said to you regarding that resolution. Remember, we passed the resolution where we asked to, increase the bands, of which deepening the tax relief for seniors on their property taxes for their primary homes, as well as expanding that a bit. So like people making a little bit more money than the city said they could make to qualify. So we passed the resolution, but I think what we know a lot of times we pass a resolution and then doesn't really go anywhere, right? I mean, if we don't pursue it. So Angel has been in contact, I believe. Angel, I'll pass it to you. I don't want to say anything that's wrong.
Yeah, what's underneath the rock. So yeah, so you passed the resolution, we addressed it to the commissioners of HPD and PFF. Department of Finance, we did not hear back from HPD, we did hear back from Department of Finance. And while the person that responded said that they agreed, in order to make those changes requires state action, so they advised that we pursue it at the state level with our state elected reps. So I've spoken with them about that, about redoing the reso, not the content of the reso, but the addressing, who we're addressing it to. And then figuring out how we're going to lobby our elected officials, advocate with our elected officials, our state reps, to lobby for those changes when they re-enter the legislative session in January.
Okay, so I think, I'll call you, I think, so what we'll do is, cause as Angel said, we don't need to really change the substance of it all, just I guess literally who we're sending it to. But I guess we have to adopt it again, so we'll do that. We're not meeting that far, like we have a January meeting now, like in a couple weeks, so I think there we can do that. We can try to lobby elected officials. I think what I might do when I, because what happens is by the time we get to business, a lot of the dip, right? Which is why I've been saying, like, why do they get to go first and then kind of leave? Some of them stay, some of them don't. I might sign up to speak for a few minutes to kind of bring this up. So they're there to hear it, at least to kind of like, Serrano, whatever, who's like their reps there. So just, and like, I have,
I thought you just asked them a question.
yeah, well, I will just call them out. I don't really care. So, just to at least get that going, because look, I don't know what.
If you do the 3 minutes, you set them up, at least prepare them.
I mean, I just worry by the time I get to sharing our housing meeting, that they're not gonna be, yeah, exactly, like, that's wishful thinking. Beverly?
Regarding the resolution, this is all because of the 421A.
Well, that was that's kind of, I guess, what brought the attention to the
Right.
issue, because, they're gonna go from paying no taxes for 20 years, property
Right.
taxes, to now paying whatever the current rate is, right? Which, in a lot of cases, this is my opinion, I think it's totally fine. If you make a certain income and you bought in that building that we were specifically talking about, Madison, I looked up property sales, $600,000-700,000 sales. If you could buy a $600,000 apartment, you should pay taxes like everybody else is paying. But if you're on a fixed income and you bought that apartment in 1990 something and you've been living there, now your taxes are gonna get you thrown out of that building. That's who we're looking to. And we started with seniors because there's already a program, and we talked about this. It's already, instead of asking them to make a program, we're like, can you just work within the parameters of a program that currently exists? And like, I think.
And adding in the educational piece, whenever anyone that's in one of those programs wants to refinance.
Right.
Informing them that the life of the program is is not going to extend to the new terms.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
it shows, now you've taken money, yeah.
Which is where that's
There
where a
was-
lot of the issues have fallen, a lot of the
Right.
residents, especially those that are aging in place. Is that they refinanced when the market dropped in 08, got an amazing deal, but now they're 10 years.
Right.
Short of.
Right, and they thought the program would, yeah, which I mean, to some might be like, well, but this is again, gets back to like educating people and this and that, and a lot of people. it's like, you're just looking for a place to live, you're gonna pay your bills, you're not, you know, an expert on these things, I mean, most of us aren't, right? So, okay, so I just want us to follow up on that, I didn't want it to be like, oh, we passed this resolution and that's it, you know, we're gonna do our best to, when we start something, try to finish it or see it through, so, all right, we're gonna go to new business. Yep.
In your strategy, giving a, informational, 3 minutes, whatever it is great. Then also, you know, targeting with a question, right, the elected officials, you're gonna ask them if they're aware of this,
Yeah.
As man.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was gonna be very targeted intentionally, you know, thank you though, and strategy wise, like, you know, I'm like, just because, you know, I'm the chair, so I'm gonna represent us, but like, by no means should this be my strategy or my approach, so like, I welcome all of you, because like, just tonight here alone, 5 times I said something, not that it was wrong, but you guys added great ideas that I wasn't gonna see on my own, so.
On that note, is the ask gonna be that they introduce some sort of legislation, or adopt the resolution's language into legislation?
I mean, which do you,
I mean, that's how I would phrase it is, you know, do you commit to addressing this by introducing a piece of legislation at the state level? Now, look, that could take 10 years to pass, but at least it's something in the right direction.
yeah, okay. Like, yeah, and if you, cause you know, like, I can go up there and ask, like, it's not me asking, it's us asking. So if you wanna even put that in writing, I'll read it right off, you know, you might have a better way of, phrasing the question than I do.
But can we also ask, because these tax.
You can also sign up and sue yourself. Yeah, we can all do it. We go kiss Angel off for a minute.
No, because I know when we was having a meeting with land use, that the 421A is being offered for housing. For the one, another building that's getting ready to get done. And I was surprised to see that it's still being offered, but it's being offered by the city. So I was wondering, why isn't the city not trying to also give the tax breaks to the buildings that already have the 421, which had expired? And especially for the seniors that's aging in place, because it's an act that we can give them access also.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding that, there was a certain point in the process that you had to be at in order to, lock in your eligibility for 421A. We'll still hear about 421A for another like 4 or 5 years while those projects continue to get finished, but no new.
No new.
Approvals.
421A. Yeah, so everything from that point forward will be 485X will take some time because of the whole interest rate thing, but so we're gonna still keep hearing about 421A, but those projects had met certain thresholds, criteria as far as earmarking that they wanted those credits and they've already started, so they could still get them, so.
And if I could add to that.
Yeah.
Those programs are typically meant for new construction.
Right.
There are programs that are also meant for rehabilitation that also kind of fall into the same guys where they rehab the building, they get the tax breaks forward. So what we're asking is for the ones that are existing that impact a specific, you know, aging community that we're addressing here. That's where we kind of need them to work within the guidelines of the existing programs. And that's why we're asking them to, you know, there's a program, like, can you please throw more money behind it? Can you please do more in terms of outreach and education to make sure that the people that qualify for it can take advantage of it.
And here's the thing, right? I mean, like, and I could be wrong, but if you wanna like put this bluntly, I can't imagine the tax burden that this will create on the city is like, the depth is gonna be, right, like, as opposed to the tax breaks they were giving to the people building the building. So they can't really say they don't have the money, in my opinion. I think that's bullshit.
Not a single pothole will go.
Right, they're not, they have the same 4 potholes on the FDR on 23rd Street, they've never been filled in. I memorize them, I could drive blind and know where they are.
The extra bit of money that this is gonna generate.
Yeah,
It's not.
so it's a joke, you know, I mean, just, you know, it's not like, we're not asking for that much, you know, we're not even asking for them to say you don't have to pay any taxes. We're just asking for them to pay a tax bill that's not gonna put them out of their homes, or, All right, so new business, there is something that was shared with me, but I'm gonna just briefly go over it just to put it out there. I'll do that at the end, because we do, okay, wait, I'm sorry, Loretta, I didn't look. Your hand, please, go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't have a question. I didn't have a question. My hand need to go down.
Okay, it's still up, no problem,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
So I'll
Is
just
this-
like,
Mhm.
you could, no, it doesn't matter now, I know, it's down though, you got it, thank you. So new business, all right, so it says tenant concerns at 205 East 124th Street, HDFC, so I'm gonna there's a tenant from there I'm gonna give them the floor, they kind of explained. They reached out, they came to a full board, they asked, where they should go, I told them, come, meet with me, just so I could hear it out, but since they came, I just figured better hear it from them, and, so Sarah, are you on? Yeah, I see you, Sarah.
Yes, I'm
We
here.
can hear you. So I'm assuming you heard what I said. I didn't really say anything much so I'm gonna give you the floor. Try to keep it as succinct as possible, but basically tell them what you told me.
Okay, perfect. And can you guys see me or I guess
Well,
it doesn't really
you can leave
matter.
it on.
Okay.
We hear you.
Okay. Oh, I actually,
You're muted now, Sarah.
okay.
Now.
All right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for everyone, to everyone for listening. So I am a shareholder at 205 East 125th. It is an HDFC building. It should be the person's primary residence. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the HDFC program. But essentially what's happened is, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, perfect. So essentially what's happening at this building, there are 21 apartments. And what happened is an attorney bought in the building, and everyone at that time, I was not living there, but people thought it was a little weird that this Ivy League attorney was moving into this HDFC building. Now, what he did is he then had his brothers purchase in the building, then his friends purchase in the building. Now, the fact that he's an attorney, then he started the way that he was able to get his friends and family to buy in the building is he started evicting shareholders under the Pullman action. You guys can look this up. It's PULLMAN. And what the Pullman action does is it empowers, he's on the co-op board, okay? So it empowers co-op boards with what's called the business judgment rule. You guys should also look that up, business judgment rule. So it empowers co-op boards to essentially have have shareholders removed from the building, their shares canceled, and they would never be able to do this in housing court, but they take the shareholder to Supreme Court, New York Supreme Court. So far, they have done this to 5 different shareholders. They are currently in court trying to do this to me. I've already spent $20,000 in attorney fees. What they are essentially trying to do is take over the building. They are now in control of 8 out of 21 apartments. Once they're able to get control, so majority ownership, they will be able to, like, for example, convert the building from HDFC, low income housing, to free market co-op or condo, or sell the building. And we also have $20,000 in air rights, 20,000 square feet in air rights. They have kicked out an Army veteran, mostly people of color, people who are very vulnerable and cannot afford to defend themselves in court. And that's why he's been able to evict So far, like I said, 5 people. He's having a very hard time doing this to me because I've been able to lawyer up and defend myself. But this is, I don't know, it's a really horrible place to be in. I have reached out to Diana Ayala's office several times. They don't do anything. I've reached out to HPD. We're no longer in a regulatory agreement. So HPD has really very little control. I've reached out to UHAB about this several times. I've reached out to so many different like government agencies and, you know, political types, and no one does anything, unfortunately. So I thought that this would be a good way to kind of get the word out, see if you guys have any recommendations. They are now trying to do this. They've tried to cancel my shares, and now they are trying to cancel 2 other people's shareholders at the building. And they are so desperate that they will make up. I mean, it's actually very, it's the weirdest thing, but they happen to be Jewish. I'm Jewish as well. They have basically staged anti-Semitic things at the building. You know, blaming people, saying that they've made anti-Semitic comments to them. Meanwhile, like, we have it on video, things never happened, but this is what they would put under objectionable conduct to cancel the person's shares. They've said that I'm stirring up anti-Semitism at the building, even though I'm Jewish, and that's why people are making these comments. I mean, it's just, when I tell you, it is the most bizarre thing, and I happen to be in real estate, or as a real estate broker. I've never seen anything like this, and it all stems from greed and them trying to take over the building. So if there's any way that you guys can point me and other shareholders in the right direction, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
A quick question, so how many board members does the HCC currently have? Active
There's-
board members?
Yeah, there's 5 board members.
Okay, and you said it's 21 units, so 5 board members, and how many seats does this person currently control?
Okay, so one is a friend on the board. He basically, like, okay, of the 5 people who are currently on the board, he doesn't currently have a family member on the board, but these are all, like, one of them he was already a friend with. Her name is Morena. She's an investment banker. How she got into the building with her income, no clue. The other, he definitely has what he does is he doesn't say, hey, these are my friends moving into the building, but we suspect that 2 of the other board members are actually his friends. Because they recently came into the building in the past like 2 or 3 years, and just the way that they turn a blind eye and enable his behavior, we are suspenseful that they are actually his friends. So I would say he controls at least 3 seats for sure on the board, 3 out of the 5.
Okay, that's what-
So for those of you that aren't aware of the Pullman action, it was developed in order to evict what they considered nuisance residents. So think of hoarders, think of people who, you know, were creating unsafe conditions, things like that. So it was created, and the president's only about 20 years old. I think it was 2003. And I literally just read through like the fact pattern. So it was created for that purpose. So this person seems to be, you know,
Weaponizing it?
weaponizing it, exactly. This, and you currently have representation, but others, you know, other people in the building presumably do not.
That's
Correct?
correct. They cannot afford it. They are in no position. They're on fixed income. They can't afford to.
Yeah, so depending, this might not be something legal aid would take, but there are other nonprofits, like Take Root Justice, Manhattan Legal Services. Yeah, so I can connect you with someone at Manhattan Legal Services.
And I could, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
so I had an issue with a landlord a couple of years ago. Our building had to organize, and Manhattan Legal Services ended up representing the organization. But there are nonprofits that we do. Legal aid is a little tough because legal aid, they have very strict income requirements.
Gotcha.
But we can probably point them in the right direction. This is, yeah, it's bad.
I mean, what I can say is. On my level, I can talk to the councilwoman's office myself, maybe, maybe they're just not, it's not funneling to her, they may, maybe they're not getting all the facts, so. I can do that much. I've also recommended, which I still would, that you sign up and speak at full board. See, here's my question, right? Like, we could even attempt to engage with these people, but I don't see that going well, I mean, at all. So I think we'll refrain from that, but I think Will makes a good point. At least he can help the people who can't currently help themselves. They're not able to get representation. Maybe there's a way to do that. I can raise, yeah, I can speak to the city council and like directly myself and make her aware. I can't make any promises about what they'll do or not do, but I can get their ear to at least listen to this.
And you said you're not currently in a regulatory
Agreement?
but you're still operating as an HCFC.
Yes, that is correct. So as of 2015, we are out of our regulatory agreement, but we still are classified as an HDFC. And in fact, we receive, I think it's called the DAMP tax credit, DAMT.
There's also a organization of HCFC co-ops. They're, I mean, mainly on the west side, because that's where the majority of the HCFCs that are still operating live. It's the HCFC Coalition. I can see if we have a contact over there. I know they do a lot of work with an organization called Palante, which is a nonprofit on the west side. But they tend to really get organized when HCFC shareholders are in trouble. Normally it's when, the building's not being managed and, it's kind of like, when there's a dissolution coming, but this might be something that they may be interested in, just because this is another way for shareholders to lose their property rights. I'll look up the information, see if I can't connect you with them.
Okay, so do I have any other questions, comments, recommendations, Jessica?
Just, it sounds like you're doing so, and I'm sorry you're experiencing what you're experiencing in your homestead. But to both yourself and your other former neighbors, to keep rigorous documentation of everything, if you can. I know that's not a practice that is good for your well-being, but ultimately I'm sure it will help put things in order when they need to be accounted for, so. I have a question.
Yep.
Can you tell me, again, I'm so sorry for you going through this also. What is the consensus of the other residents in the building that you speak of that's on fixed income? Are they concerned? Are they joining together to try to find out, whether or not these things, what they can do in order to stop this from happening?
So this is part of the problem at the building is that, so there are certain individuals, so in terms of people seeing things the way that I see them, right? And recognizing their predatory behavior, there's 4 out of 21 shareholders like me that are exactly on the same page. There are other shareholders who are illegally subleasing. And so even if they're not part of that little cabal, they still don't want to kind of join forces with us because we are, we acknowledge, we want to follow the rules, right? Like it should be your primary residence. And so there's kind of that resistance, if you will. Out of the 21 units, about half of the building is, half of the shareholders are using their homes as a primary residence. Did that answer your question? I know it's a little bit nuanced, but,
You said there are 4, right? And you were just trying to get and see, and are you guys, I guess, I'm gonna try to, were you asking if there was any kind of coordination effort
Yeah.
together?
Unity, you know,
Right.
to try to stop this from happening.
Because you had mentioned, I had asked, and maybe their schedule didn't work, you had mentioned possibly being able to get somebody else to join you tonight, and maybe that
Yes.
didn't happen, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, and by the way, he would have joined, but I know that when we had also spoken, you had said like, this time I can speak, and like, maybe we could even have another meet. I mean, I can, at least get like another 2 or 3 shareholders, to join a future meeting. There are other shareholders who are currently not necessarily in court, but they are, they have a lot of, resistance, with the board and with what is happening. But I would say that there are certain other shareholders, like either they're subletting themselves or they just kind of turn a blind eye. They're, I would say, naive to what is happening. But yeah, there's at least 4 of us that are 100% on the same page. And, like I said, we've, at least 3 of us at once have gone to Diana Ayala's office and, contacted different organizations and whatnot. So there are at least some of us, on the same page, and like, we totally realize what's happening and the whole objective behind all this.
Okay, so I think to wrap this up for this evening, this is what I think we'll do. Will, and I'm not gonna only put this on Will, I'll do some research myself. We'll attempt to connect you with resources, legal resources for the, let's say the other 3 or whatever it is that haven't, shareholders who haven't been able to secure legal representation due to financial restraints, as well as programs that, organized HDFC programs who might be able to come and help you. We'll try to connect you with those resources, as Jessica said, and I think you said, you've been filming things or whatever. To whatever you're able to, I agree that you should be documenting what you're going through. That'll be ammunition that you have. I suggest you sign up, and I'll send you the date. You could do it the same way you're doing it tonight via Zoom. To speak I will share this when I do my minutes at our full board meeting, but I don't know if you heard what I said earlier. There's not as big an audience at that point. It might be good for you to speak and say your piece also at the full board. There are other people there that'll hear it. And then I know you've mentioned going to Diana Ayala's office and, not being able to really push that forward. I can talk to her about it. I don't know what I can do or what she's gonna be able to do, but I can at least have a dialogue there. So, I mean, that's what I'm hearing right now, and I think that's a good starting place. If just 1 or 2 of those things can pan out, just the resources or this, maybe we can, get you some help.
I just realized, you know who's, you're gonna laugh at this, you know who's the lead attorney at Volante now? Jeremiah Slotman.
Yeah.
So, a housing chair, I think a couple of housing chairs before me is the head of legal of that organization. So there might be another connection there that we can work on for you. So I will be like we've known each other. I've known you for a long time, so I can be like the middle person. You guys could funnel it through me. And so I think, I wish we could have like a magic wand here to solve everybody's problems, but I think as you've heard tonight, it's not easy on any of these things, as much sense as they make. But we'll do our best to help you. I mean, this is the type of stuff that we're here to do. And,
It's nice like tonight, I wish I was still practicing.
so, unless you have anything else you want to say or whatever, I think we'll wrap this up tonight and we will be in touch with you. As I said, we're gonna try to see things through or do the best we can to help, all right? But thank you so much for stating your piece, and I'll be in touch with you, all right?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Good night. Bye.
All right, so last thing, and this just came to my attention a couple days ago, and I'll share it with everybody. Jonathan Winstone, who was a former member of our board, I think pretty much all of us are familiar with him. The building he's living in, I don't know all the details yet. He wrote a letter, and it's about their insurance costs in the building, going through the roof, right? And as somebody who owns real estate in this neighborhood specifically, can tell you that, and I don't know if their issue is the same, but it is rising costs. My insurance costs have gone through the roof. And not only that, it's getting very hard to find, providers to give you insurance. Like it's borderline, they're discriminating this neighborhood in areas in the Bronx. I've literally had my broker tell me that people I've been doing insurance with for years, never had a claim, never had a problem, just don't want to insure me. And she's literally like, go find somebody else. Like, I can't help you anymore. So go ahead.
So, I'm glad that it's been brought to the table. I'm not glad that it's happening, but it's also a huge issue that is just going to explode across all sorts of things. So how to deal with it on a local level is an opportunity as much as it is a challenge, I think, for individuals. So there's the industry connections, I can help support the conversation in some ways. And to just say that you're not alone, right, in having these challenges, figuring out how to, there's, all sorts of think tanks and, the Fed, everyone is trying to figure out what to do to ensure that it doesn't turn into another discriminatory practice. While it's exploding is so important. So to speak up and figure out how to be vocal about it, in suggesting stopgap measures for problem solving. I hope to be able to help contribute to that.
Thank you. And you're free to call, share, email. I don't want to say whatever you can do is appreciated. And I only bring it up because I hear you. And I mean, it sucks, but I mean, I'm not, it's not gonna impact me as bad, but I just saw, it was more just the struggle to even get insurance, right? But then there are people who it's really gonna hurt, and then there are these big buildings gonna get the cost gonna pass. I mean, we all know Jonathan, he's also very eloquent, and not that you have to be eloquent to come state your case, but he's gonna say it better than I can. So I'm gonna invite them the same way I invited Sarah. This is a good thing. I know I said I was like presentation adverse, which Angels called me out on. There could be useful presentations. Well, whatever. It's like my big brother, so he, but what I've noticed, and some committees have done this successfully, and I want to do it here is, not just get organizations to come here and make their presentations. You touched on this earlier and you were right, like not just getting the landlords, but getting the people to come in and, these might not sound like the biggest things in the world to us, and I'm just comparing to say like the crisis with NYCHA, right? But to these people, this is it for them. We're talking about anybody who's being threatened about having a roof over their head is a big problem.
I mean, we can type more broadly if small landlords and small property owners are feeling this crunch. It's gonna eventually filter to the larger
Right.
landlords, which is gonna raise rents,
Mhm.
because costs gonna go up. So we
The
have
trickle,
yeah, and look, part of it is also our proximity to the floodplain. I know that's not flood insurance because it's a little bit different.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're looking at any claims or your likelihood of claims. In the next 10 years, that's part of the calculation. And look, it's been almost 10 years since the last Sandy's, the last major event on the East
Yeah.
River.
Yeah.
We're over.
Yeah, and they're factoring that in.
Yep.
100%.
There are no deals in insurance, as they say, everything's factored in.
Yeah, you hope you never need to actually use your insurance, right? You pay the bill and you hope you never have to make a claim. I mean, look what's in the news on the health insurance, right? I mean, look what happened, right? That was the only thing people could talk about. So, and your health is important, or your home is almost as important as your health. They go hand in hand. Go
So
ahead.
you think that they can also be using this tactic as to weaponize getting rid of people,
Clean this community out.
to clean the
I mean,
community out,
I think-
especially if there's
Now the
not in
businesses.
specific areas,
Now the businesses.
yeah, and then after it's cleaned up, you have everybody coming in, oh, we'll give you this.
I know some of this ties into, because it's mentioned in their letter, and I thought about this even like, because I think the building that Jonathan's in is relatively, is a large building.
Mhm.
And he mentioned something about even what's happening in Florida with those condos stuff, they're kind of using that over here, even though I don't know the connect. I feel like they're gonna look for anything and what the motives are. There might be other motives, you know, but that could definitely be something.
And
Yeah.
it's aging infrastructure. Lack of, it's
Yeah.
whole.
Okay, I mean, I promised I'd keep it short. It wasn't that bad. It's still not 8 o'clock. If there's nothing else for tonight, we're gonna have a meeting again in a couple weeks. So Angel, can you do the roll?
Stephanie Arroyo, Deb Briha,
Present.
David Giordano,
Present.
John Green,
Yeah, happy holiday.
David Johnson.
I'm
Well,
here
okay.
and happy holidays to everybody.
You and your family.
Thank you.
Paul Lopez here, Jessica Morris.
Here.
Lily Pavone,
Present.
Columbia Perez, Sophia Ramos, Sanders, Loretta Soul,
Yeah, happy holiday.
Vasquez, Jason.
All right, happy holidays, everyone, to you and your families. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.